All right. How I would learn to code if I could start over. I'm coming up on 5.5 years experience professionally developing, mostly front end. But I've been programming for 7, 8 years, started in college. And I always felt like I was kind of behind other people because a lot of my classmates had been tinkering with stuff like way before I was. But if I could go back, this is the stuff that I would focus on. So, I think the number one most important thing to consider is why do you want to learn this skill? Because yes, the salary is nice, but there are days where that is not enough. Just like any job, you're gonna have parts parts of the experience, just being in a corporate environment where it's gonna grind you down, and yeah, it's not pretty at times. And if you're only motivated for money, those times are especially more difficult. For me, I am just generally interested in technology. I love tinkering. I love playing around with technical stuff, with projects. For someone who's really curious, it's a really good career for you because you're going to have to always be learning, always having to try to understand what's coming next. Like, what do I have to stay on top of? So it's a field of continuous learning, like pretty much forever. Um, and if you're only in it for the money, there's going to come a day where it's not enough. um, and yeah, so know your why. It's the number one most important thing. Whenever on any sort of endeavor, like you need to know uh, why you're in it. What's your motivation? So my advice is going to be tailored for more if you want to do this professionally, if you want to eventually someday have a job as a developer, and so you kind of have to take it a bit more seriously than just a hobby. But it's okay to just do it as a hobby as well. It's fun. It can be very fun. But yeah, when you have deadlines and stuff, the money, you know, it can't be your only motivation, in my opinion, long term. So I'm going to start off talking about just like what is programming, like what are you actually trying to learn. At the end of the day, you're trying to learn how to problem solve. Um, and all the problems that you're going to be solving can be boiled down to one sentence. How can I instruct the computer to do a specific thing? And that can be in whatever context. So, I'm a web developer, so a lot of times the problem I'm trying to solve is how can I make the browser render something a certain way? How can I make the system produce this output? And an important thing to know about that is it's such a vague statement, but it's just kind of a generalized goal for whatever you're trying to do. And there are so many different ways in programming to do one thing. And programmers like to talk a lot about, this way or that way, what's better. But I think in the beginning, you should just be focused on the outcome. If you're trying to turn something red, like there's a million ways to turn something red. Don't be too concerned with all of the different ways. And that's going to help you create feedback loops a lot quicker when you're first learning something and your motivation is shaky. Like, the faster you get something accomplished, the better you feel, and it just kind of feeds into itself. So that's going to help motivate you and keep going. So just focus on accomplishing your task. So how can I make the computer do something? And worry about all the other extra stuff when you're out of the brand new beginner stage. There's a couple of things I think is going to help you as a programmer, and I already talked about one. It's just general curiosity. There are people who are hyper curious, and they would do very well in this type of field, in this type of work. But also, those are the type of people that are kind of going to do well in pretty much anything. So you just need like a little bit of curiosity about you, and wondering like, what if I do it this way? What if I do it that way? And that's kind of where the different ways to do things comes into play. So long term, be curious. Why does something work? How does it work? When you're first introduced to a technology, you kind of it's kind of a paradox. You need to just take it high level at first, generalized. What does this tool do? What is it used for? Or a system? How does it what is the purpose of the system? What does it produce? And then as you interact with it, asking yourself, what if I do this? What if I do that? And that playfulness, that curiosity, is super important. So keep that curiosity. The other thing, I think, two-pronged approach to just things in general that will help you along this journey is curiosity and mentality. So you do need kind of a marathon mentality, and if you work as a professional developer, you're going to be working in some sort of agile framework most likely. So all of your work will be organized into sprints, just like 2 weeks of like, we're going to do this work then, and then the next week we'll do this work then. And that, you do need to learn that eventually, but take the marathon approach. Like, do a little bit every day, be in it for the long haul, don't burn yourself out, and keep it fun. Keep the feedback loops going. And so yeah, curiosity and a marathon mentality. Those two things, like, I know I'm talking about like really generalized things, but they're very important. I think if I could go back, I would keep those, because I remember spinning my wheels on things that didn't really matter. And you're going to do that anyways. You can't avoid it, right? So just keep it fun, keep it light, try to accomplish something as fast as you can, keep it iterating on itself. So now I'm going to talk about actually what to actually do. And a lot of these types of videos about, if I could start over programming, they kind of talk about like projects and stuff, and projects are very important. I'm going to get to that too. But I think there is one course that if you're brand new to programming, everyone should take. And if you can take this course and enjoy it and get through it, I think you have what it takes to be a professional developer. It's a free course. It is the best lectures I've ever experienced for any subject, for a beginner level course. The best I've ever experienced. And it's the Harvard CS50 course. It's totally online. The lectures are amazing. I forget his last name, but David, the instructor, is like one of the best educators you'll ever see. Just the way he speaks and the way he shows things, and the whole team behind him. It's a very modern educational experience. So you take your lectures, right? You learn all the beginning things that you need to know about computer science and programming, and then you have these homework assignments, and there's an online integrated developer environment, IDE, and it's an amazing thing because you do your homework in that IDE, and you're trying to give the computer instructions to do tasks, like I talked about earlier. But they've set it up so that when your program fails, it gives you hints about why it might be failing, and it's up to you to then be curious and figure out why it might be failing. And I remember I took this after I finished my degree in computer science, and I was like, this is the upper echelon of education. Like, this is a beautiful, beautiful thing that's out in the world. And whenever people have asked me, like, how do I get involved in programming, how do I learn about it, I always point them to this course. It is an amazing course. You're going to learn so much. It's such a good foundation, not just for programming, but computer science in general. And it's very fun. It's very fun. So after that course, I think you have a little bit about you in terms of problem solving, in terms of like a good mentality. Like, it's not a long course. Like, maybe you could do it in like a month if it's like all you did, but it has some beef to it. So, do that, take your time with it, ask yourself if you enjoyed it. If you did, like, it's a really good sign that this is kind of the right thing for you. From there, I think if you could problem solve through that course, you could just go and build something and do something really simple. I think one thing that you could do is build some sort of game in the command line or something. So that course uses Python and C. I would recommend using Python. It's a little bit easier for a beginner to use. So just build some sort of program. If you can't come up with anything, here's something for you. Build a game, like not tic-tac-toe, Hangman. Hangman would be good to implement. Game programming actually is one of the hardest fields of programming in terms of completing projects. But that's because there's so much logic involved. Don't worry about 3D graphics or anything. Just create a command line game. And that is a really good first project for somebody. Don't do a complicated game like Galaga or any of those arcade games. They get really complex really fast. So just do Hangman, any sort of word-based games where you can just work with strings and you'll be good. Keep it small. That's the most important thing. Keep it very small. I would not go larger than Hangman at all. Do not go larger than Hangman. Okay. From there, I think you're kind of out of the beginner stage. Like, you have a good foundation. You've built a project. I would maybe build another project if you want. So if you want to get into web dev, Harvard has kind of a continuation of their CS50 course. It's based around web programming. I haven't taken that, but based on the CS50 course itself, like, I would trust it. So that would be a natural progression. But something that would help you become prepared for interviewing, getting a job, is a course that I took, and really learned a lot. It taught me a lot of the modern tools of web development, and that's the University of Helsinki Fullstack course. It's completely free, and the quality is insane. It's going to teach you full stack development. What is a server? How does a browser work? How does React work? How do they talk to each other? And those are really fundamental things that you need to know about in order to get a job. And I think also web dev is probably the easiest field to break into in professional developing. So once you feel ready to try to make that leap, I would definitely recommend that course. It's going to teach you so much. It's going to help you build projects. It's going to help you give you something to talk about in interviews. A project that I built after doing that course, as just let me practice these skills, actually made me a little bit of money, and also was a big talking point in my interviews and did get me hired at a great job. So I owe a lot to that course. I learned a ton. I did not learn web development from my CS degree, so that was a huge thing for me to learn those skills. Look, from there, you've come a long way, and I just want to talk briefly about foundation. Learning to program is amazing. It can be really fun, but if you want to take it further, then you need to learn how computers work just in general. And there is a free resource online called teachyourselfcs.com, and it lists for every subject that you should know, as if you were like doing a bachelor's in computer science. For every subject, it gives you a couple different textbooks to try out, maybe some online lectures, and it even says like which subjects are most important on the website. But I did the first book, Structure and Interpretation of Computer Programs, and it just like, it taught me so much about programming languages, about computers, and I've been using those skills every day. Yeah, so that's an amazing resource. I'm working through it myself. It's not something that is necessary, but you work through that, you're gonna be a good engineer someday. You work through it over a year or two, and maybe longer. For me, it's longer. I've done one and a half of the textbooks, and it's taken me a long way. So I'm really curious what it will be like if I put more effort into it as well. So I definitely recommend that. Finally, I'm just going to talk about AI real quick, because I didn't have AI when I was learning to program, and it's obviously amazing. It is way more powerful than most people even know, and I use it every day at my job. So why should you not use it? Well, because you're a brand new beginner. It will hamstring you if you rely on it too much. Same if you just rely on other people's code too much. Like, you need to be struggling. You need to be solving your own problems best you can. And it's hard. It's really hard. And it makes some people quit. I give up on programs all the time when I'm trying, and I have to take a break and come back to it. But that's the key. You have to keep coming back to it. In terms of AI, one way you can use it that's super helpful is you use ChatGPT. You give it a chunk of code and you ask it what is going on here if you don't understand it, and it's going to really help you go line by line and analyze programs. But I would not use it to write code when you're starting out. You want to be writing all your code. You want to be making the mistakes and learning from them. So let ChatGPT help you debug when you're stuck. Let it help you understand what's going on in a piece of code, And you can also use it for like, what is this concept, and it will explain it to you like really nicely. It's super helpful in that avenue. But take the input when you're stuck, try to put it into your code, and have this kind of loop between you and ChatGPT. There's a concept called rubber duck programming, and it's when programmers are stuck, they put a little rubber duck or an imaginary one on their desk and they talk to it about their problem. And I do rubber duck programming with ChatGPT all the time, and it's amazing. So only really use it for that. Especially don't use the auto completion AI stuff. Like, that will totally hamstring you. It even hamstrings professional, knowledgeable people. Like, stay away from that. Like GitHub Copilot. Like, that's not for you if you're a beginner, okay? So, that's all I got. So, you need a good mentality. You need to be curious. You need to be committed to the marathon. Try CS50, see how you feel about that. And if you enjoy it, if you learn a lot from it, like, that's a really good sign. To take it further, try to do the Fullstack Helsinki course if you want to go into web dev. And then finally, for your whole career, like, what do I do to learn all the fundamentals, all the foundational knowledge? Go to teachyourselfcs.com. Even if you're doing a computer science degree, or you're going to, or you've already done one. I've already done one. I find it super helpful to go back and be a little bit more thorough about things. And you're going to learn a lot that way, and you're going to become very skilled. So that's all I got. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment if you have questions, or let me know what you think. Thanks.